Here we are with another episode of the Live Life by Design show.
Thanks for having me.
I got your text and I wore black. I'm glad we're
go.
color matched today. But it's good to have you. How you been?
Been really good, man. Good.
What's getting Kyle excited nowadays? What are you up to?
I mean, as you know, we're full summer mode right now, so just out in the rallying troops day in and day out.
Yeah, so you work at, you run an environmental company. Mm-hmm. Are you guys nationwide? How does it work? Talk to us a little bit about what you do in that regard.
Yeah, so I'm president of sales at Aptive Environmental. We're the 5th largest pest control company in the nation.
Who's the largest?
So we have Terminex and Orkin. One of them's number one, one's number two.
And those are both public?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and then Anti-Semix and Ecolab are two of the other big ones. Ecolab is mainly commercial, and Anti-Semix has been buying up a lot of companies lately. They were out of like a European-based private equity firm that just kind of got their footprint in by buying up a bunch of companies.
Cool. And how long have you been doing this kind of industry?
17 years.
Jeez. You're one of the vets.
Yeah, dude.
You're the vet of the vets.
Getting old. The gray's coming in.
And you start off, am I getting the story right? You start off not on the sales side.
Correct.
So tell us how you started.
Yeah. So I actually started off kind of lowest in the company. I was a $8.75 an hour minimum wage technician. Spraying houses back in 2007.
Okay. And then what triggered you, or what caused you to pivot from being a tech to going into sales?
Yeah, so I moved up fairly quickly on the operations side. Like I've always just been kind of whatever, can't remember what the quote was exactly, but it was whether you're a street sweeper or an artist, like do the best you can, like you have purpose. And I'm totally blowing the quote, but whatever my job has always been in any aspect of my life, and any small summer jobs, anything I've ever done, it's always just what can I do? How can I add value? And so I got in and moved up fairly quickly into like a service manager position. So I was managing the technicians, the trucks, the chemicals, maintenance.
Was it Altera at the time?
It was a Moxie franchise. It was like the very first.
So it wasn't
Moxie.
even Aptive.
Yeah. We've had a few renditions and we've built and sold.
But hold on, was that still part of the current group?
Yeah, Vess and Dave. Yeah, still part of Vess and Dave. Yeah. So Dave built his franchise up, sold that back in 2008, and so I was a service manager then. And then in 2009, we rolled out our first kind of independent business.
Altera.
Eco First.
Yeah,
okay. Eco First. I was a branch manager then, so I moved up to the Bay Area, started a branch, ordered in the trucks, housing, payroll, chemicals, licensing.
So as a branch manager, you're still on the service side.
Yep.
You're not on the sales side yet.
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
The only thing I was ever doing on the sales side was helping manage, routes and efficiency for the sales force, and then doing their payroll.
Okay.
And it was then when I saw what the sales guys were making, because the managers chat and like I'm doing their payroll at the end of the summer. I'm asking them at the end of their summer, how much did you make? I'm doing the math in my head. Like I'm making $45K a year with a potential $10K, bonus back then. And our branch managers and ops managers are paid way better now than, back then. But in that startup mode, we were 4 offices in the company, my office in San Jose, an office in Denver, an office in Seattle, and an office in Phoenix. And that year I had the highest performing office, the best customer retention, best rep retention, highest sales rep per rep average. Like the office side performed really well, but that really didn't mean that it was going to get me to move up any quicker. And
what year is this?
This was 2009.
Okay. 2009. Yeah. The company only has 4 operations at the time.
Yeah.
Okay. Keep going.
Yeah, and so I reached out to Vess and Dave at the end of the summer and was like, what's my growth look like? How soon can I move up into a regional ops position? What's the growth? And they said, well, one, the growth on this ops side, on the operations side, is very independent or very dependent on the sales side. So if the sales side's not growing and scaling, then the ops isn't. And 2, you've been in your position the youngest, when you're seniority wise, there's operations guys that have been here since day one for 4, 5, 6, 7 years. And so I was like, well, if I want to grow, I need to go where the growth is. And on the sales side, and my mind was also, if I want to help the sales side grow, I can bring operations knowledge over, product knowledge, what the products actually do, how to set customer expectations extremely correct, and how to help with customer retention. Like I knew how to navigate the customer contract and all of that kind of stuff. And so I proposed an idea of moving to Utah, quitting my salary job, becoming 100% commission, and trying my hand at the sales side. And then so I started over on the sales side of the company, moved up to Utah in the fall of 2009, went out and sold 2010
As a rep.
as a sales rep, just straight up at the bottom again. My wife was pregnant at the time when we moved to Utah. Went out for my first summer to Phoenix, so nice cold area.
Just so that viewers and listeners can understand, how hot does Phoenix get in the summer?
We had a week where it was over 110 every day. Like trash cans were melted, like on the side of people's curbs. Like even the trash cans had given up hope, you know. And but no, like honestly, like I wouldn't have it any other way. Like because when you go through something extremely difficult that you're putting yourself in, like that's where the growth happens, right? And so I put myself through this like blacksmith's fire or refiner's fire, if you want to call it that, in the summer of that year. I learned how to switch people over because it's a very pest intense area. There's scorpions, there's, you know, it's a really big market for pest control. So you had to learn how to differentiate yourself in a very cost competitive market. I learned a lot about leadership. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about how to push through when you don't want to work.
Was it harder or easier than you had anticipated?
I went into it knowing it was going to be tough. So like, I don't ever want to go in and like be unpleasantly surprised. Right. So like, I kind of like,
You kind of knew it. You were getting yourself into.
I knew it was going to be tough, but for me, it was just a game. Like it's just a numbers game. Like it really became that. But yeah, so I sold my first summer in Phoenix, 2009, recruited a few friends over and kind of tested the water in recruiting, learned very quickly who to recruit, who not to recruit. And I'm glad that like I failed. I still did really well my own sales. I sold like 280 accounts, which was well above the average back then.
And what kind of earnings was that?
The
reason I ask is to compare it to what you were making as a service tech.
Yeah. As a branch manager, I would have made, had I had kept my job as a branch manager, I would have made about 65 to 70K, and I made 100 and something that year
as a rookie.
As a rookie with some recruits, and you know with my sales numbers. And so yeah, had I kept my ops job, I would have made less. I was living in the Bay Area, which is a very expensive place to live, and I was able to take that money and put it into Utah, you know, cost of living, which was really, really great. But I had a great experience, learned from my failures during the summer, and then I came back, recruited a team, ran a really successful
year
team.
Two.
Yep. Successful team in 2010 or 2011 in Utah. And then from 2012 to...
Oh, so you actually sold in Utah?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I wanted to give my wife a chance with like the kid and stuff to not have to relocate and kind of get our rental home that we were living in at the time, like not have to find subleasers and all that kind of stuff. So sold here in Utah. Sold 380 that year, so improved by 100 accounts from year 1 to year 2 in sales. About doubled my earnings as a manager as well, and then shifted into a division manager role. Still every year went out and led a team myself. 2014, 15, 16, relocated to Southern California and kind of did this transition to California for the summers from 2012 through 2020. So I actually went out and did the doors through 2020 as well. And then in 2021, I transitioned from senior VP of sales into a president of sales position within the company. So I guess you can say I'm like the Drake of pest control. I started from the bottom. Now we here. Yeah. Unless Drake's, you know, an unsavory comparison now since Kendrick worked him, you know, in these rap battles a few weeks ago.
Just like that. I like it. Wow, that's a cool story. In fact, when I was working at Walmart, there were some stories where guys would start off as the cart pusher.
Yeah.
And then they were running the store. I always thought those were awesome. So that story where you're starting off as a service tech and then now currently your role is president of sales?
Yeah, there's four presidents of sales.
So 4 presidents, and then you guys report up to the CEO directly?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're number 1 in the sales org now, and your commencement was on the service side. That's a pretty beautiful story.
Yeah.
You talked about recruiting. So talk to us about best practices of recruiting. You said, I learned year 1, and I used these learnings in year 2 to make sure that I was recruiting who I should and also not recruiting who I shouldn't.
Yeah.
Unpack that a little bit for people that are in the recruiting game.
Yeah. So I think a lot of times we want to be around people we like or we're comfortable with. But when you're trying to run a successful team or a successful company or a successful business or organization, you can't just have your friends around you. Like the same friends that were holding you back in high school are probably not the people that are going to help you thrive in a sales environment. Now, those same people that were on like your winning wrestling teams or football teams or basketball teams that had a competitive drive, that knew when it was time to celebrate, knew when it was time to play, like people that you've been around with in like sports or through other tough situations, those people are typically really good to be around. But my first year recruiting, I called up all my buddies. Hey, like come out and do this for the summer. It'll be fun. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And also my leadership style that I learned on the operations side was very much like I had to coddle and like help a lot. I'd get a call. Hey, my truck ran out of gas. I'll be right there. Hey, I lost my Webster pole on the freeway. I need a new one. Okay, I'll be right there. Hey, I'm out of chemicals, or I'm behind on my route. I need help getting it done. Okay, I'll be right there. So much of it was literally fire, pack the extinguisher up, go solve it. But on the sales side, like if you're selling a product or you're trying to help people, what I learned about myself as well as the people I wanted to be around is that anything that you're selling, whether it's security, solar, pest control, roofing, I mean any product, even cars, medical products, anything that you sell, you're solving someone's problem or you're helping them solve a problem. And so how can you help other people solve their problems if you can't solve your own? And so I learned that I was recruiting people that would have been a way better fit in more of like a technician type of position or role, where I'd get calls from guys that were like, hey, I left my clipboard at home in the apartments. And back then Uber didn't exist. And so I was their Uber, like, all right, well, I'll be right there. I have an extra clipboard in my trunk. I'll bring you some contracts and a clipboard. I'll be right there. So much of my day as I coddled these guys, instead of sending them a text back saying, actually figure it out, dude. Like, you want to go make money today? Go figure it out.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that. Like my brain didn't, I wasn't managing that way on the operations side. And so I learned after that first summer, when I looked myself in the mirror at my results, and I had to look myself in the mirror and say, how much of this was in my control? All of it, right? Like, you had to take ownership in the situation. I started reverse engineering my results, and I started seeing where I fell short. Because I wasn't spending most of my time knocking and leading from the front, my reps didn't know what my true potential was, which means they didn't know what their true potential was by implementing the things I was teaching. Sure. But they loved me. Like, I had their back. They had my back. They had a really fun summer, and they knew that I was there. Phone call away. Kyle, no one's answering. My car partner's not answering. I need to go to the bathroom. Be right there to pick you up. Man, I'm out of water. Okay, I'll be right there to bring you some water. Like, I coddled way, way too much. And again, I wasn't, my daughter was like 3 or 4 weeks old at that time, 2 months old by the end of the summer, 3 months old. So I hadn't even gotten to the phase yet where like your kid falls and you let them pick themselves back up again. They skin their knee, you dust them off and you let them walk. And so I had to look at myself at the end of that summer and say how much of my reps results are on me and not on them. And most of it was on me because I didn't set the right pace. I spent honestly a good half of my day back and forth in my car to other people. And yes, I felt like I was doing good things, but I wasn't doing the better or the best things with my time. And so the next year I implemented a rule on my team where it was like, hey, if you're having an issue, call me twice. You call me once and I don't answer, I need you to hang up or like wait and think, is this something that I can solve by myself? Or if I call Kyle again, he's going to stop knocking. He's going to pull himself off the doors. He's going to pull himself off of his time to lead us and answer. So I need to figure out so we had a 2-call rule and most reps after the first few weeks of the summer, like I'd get a call or they stopped calling altogether because they figured out, well, if I forgot my stuff, I better call a taxi or have my own car partner or borrow somebody's car and drive back and get it.
What's going to happen is they're not going to forget again.
Exactly.
Right?
They learn. And so
pain of the consequence.
Yeah. And so because I went from one extreme to the other where you asked any rep on my team, do you have a fun summer? Yes. Did you make what you wanted to make? No. And if they don't make what they want to make or where their mindset, set the bar out of like, if for me to be successful in my endeavors this summer financially, I need to make at least this much. And a lot of those guys fell short. They're not going to come back. They're not going to, bet on me for another year. They're not going to bet on themselves for another year. And
Yeah.
so I had like 29 recruits my first year, like 10, 11 finished, and like 4 came back for the next year. So like it was brutal, dude. Like that made it so I didn't have any circle. Like I couldn't go to them for referrals. Like I didn't have a ripple effect of reps that I could reach out to. So I had to start out from scratch
Yeah.
all over again. And then ran it the next year and did ran a whole separate program. And it was really, really good. Like I balanced a lot because I had seen another rep that kind of ran very like stick. I was more of like a carrot guy, and I think there's a balance. But I saw another manager in the company that was very much like, you have to knock, you have to do it, like it's all on you. And they all made really good money, but they didn't ever have any like fun or enjoyment or disconnect from it. Like they didn't feel the fulfillment that came with it as well, because they were like kind of just being forced to go out there and work. So on one extreme, I ran a really fun, unsuccessful team. Nobody came back. This guy ran a really rigid, very successful team, but nobody came back. And so I kind of learned from my own experience that year and his experience that year, and kind of merged them in between to kind of really balance. And then from there, it's just been up.
That's cool. Yeah. So it reminds me, part of my standards philosophies were I have to become unavailable to become available.
Mm-hmm.
Because imagine if I'm running around town, bringing water, picking up people, taking them to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like, what am I doing? I'm not in the highest and best use of my time. So I would tell my people, hey, use your sixth sense of selling. Everybody has it. You have your 5 senses, and you have a sixth one, which is selling. It's your intuition.
Mm-hmm.
What would you do if you couldn't get a hold of me? And then they'd give me the response. I'm like, go do that. That's fine.
That's genius.
And then they start figuring it out.
Yeah.
So I learned that early on so that I could, again, be in what I was best in the world at, so that I could lead my team to where it needed to be led. And I always told the guys, I'm going to be that coach that you're probably going to hate during practice, but you're going to love after the game, because we're going to get the results that we need to get. We're going to win here.
Yeah.
So I love what you went over. What's the state of the union now? How is, because I think some of the solar guys, and solar right now, it's going through a lot of changes, with interest rates being what they are. You see a lot of companies becoming non-existent or having a collapse into the bigger orgs. What's the state of the union with pest control? Because pest control is one of the pioneers of the direct-to-home space in the state of Utah.
Yeah.
So what is the current state? How do you view it? How do you view pest control, environmental services, et cetera?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think that reoccurring services is a really safe industry to be in. Solar's needed. I have solar in my own home. I have an alarm system.
Who installed? Because you guys have solar too,
Yeah,
right?
we have a solar.
You have a solar branch.
Yeah, we have a solar company called Ambia Energy, Ambia Solar. And
Are you involved in that at all?
A little bit. No, in day to day, no. A little bit on the other, the important, the ownership side.
Yeah.
But yeah, solar is doing great. But it was the wild, wild west, right? Like that was really what was going on there. You saw satellite back in like the early 2010, 11, 12, kind of go through that same wild, wild west where most satellite companies were selling both dish and direct.
Yeah.
And they would just, dish on one sleeve, direct on the other. They just face the door.
I was there.
But then both dish and direct were like, wait, this isn't working for us.
It's not equitable, yeah.
And, the salespeople loved it because they could go sell any house. And, but then things changed and it kind of leveled out and not a lot of people survived that. I think solar's kind of gone through the same thing where it was just a wild, wild west. There were red lines, there were financiers, there was installers, like is all over the place, and things are kind of normalizing. And so the companies that have built the right way are going to, I think, survive it, and they'll figure it out. Like I'm not worried about the solid companies that have solid ownership groups figuring it out. Pest has just been awesome. I mean, Todd Peterson started Pest before Apex and Vivint and all of that kind of stuff. It's been around forever. The nice thing about pest control specifically is that the bugs don't care about the economy. They don't care who's president. They don't care what pandemic is going on. Like the bugs are going to be here no matter what. And there's no product that gets rid of all the bugs forever because.
Yeah. What's that billboard? Pesty, is it?
Yeah.
That's
Pesty.
Trying to profess that you can do it DIY style.
Mm-hmm.
DIY style. There's no way.
No. Yeah. And their online reviews show that it's not as effective as they would like it to be. And honestly, there's a market for the do-it-yourselfer. There's a market for the do-it-yourselfer solar guy. There's a market for the do-it-yourselfer alarm guy. Like there's that. But
But I guess my statement is there's no way that DIY,
No.
like that, the way they're pitching it is, yeah, you can absolutely go with us and get the exact same service or better.
Yeah.
It's just a completely different.
Yeah, no, I'm
It's a
confident.
different industry.
I'm confident that I could take a little pesty spray bottle they send in the mail
Sure.
with my pest knowledge of where bugs are and where to treat and how to effectively treat and do a pretty dang good
Yeah,
service
until you
on
get
a home.
termites and rats.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah,
all that other stuff.
But Pest is just super.
Do you know that I actually had a pest control company in Puerto Rico? Did I ever tell you that?
Nah,
Yeah.
no, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Pro Exterminate de Puerto Rico Inc.
Really?
Yeah, we actually sold the company to a local company in the Caribbean, Oliver Exterminating, and Truly Nolan.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that truly expanded out to that area too. That's rad.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's been pretty.
So
I mean,
I've actually sprayed houses.
You have too?
Yeah. So I would, to help my guys do same days as they were really busy, they would get the deal and I'd go in right behind them and get their first spray done.
nice. No, that's a good, and that's part of like leading. You got to, especially when you're in that role, you got to get these guys fed. But no, Pest is awesome right now. I mean, our service offerings are high. I mean, most
The
companies out
revenue's
there,
gone up tremendously.
revenue's gone up. I mean, most companies are doing mosquito. Most companies now are offering some form of termite monitoring and control. We are as well. And with that, like there becomes a stickiness factor with your customer base and with your value offerings. And as a whole, I think that pest control is in a pretty healthy spot. I don't really see any type of market correction, coming into the pest space. And again, like if somebody's looking for a more price conscious deal, they're going to find it the next summer when someone knocks on their door, or they're going to.
Are there a lot of companies knocking doors on pest
Oh,
control
yeah.
still?
Yeah, there are. And there's a lot of marketing ones that are popping up now and starting to market for a lot of the smaller companies that have never.
So they'll
done
go
door-to-door.
sell for the service provider.
Uh-huh. Yeah, they'll get contracted for the summer. They'll sign a deal to put on X number of accounts or
Is
X
it
amount
is
of
it still
revenue.
pretty fragmented, or is it?
Yeah. I mean, there's a few big companies that do their own pest and marketing, and then there's a few marketing companies, and then there's a lot of small kind of door to door, small players. But
When are most of them from Utah?
I'd say like initially, like at their core, yeah, the big ones are all mainly Utah based, but even us, 40-ish% of our sales force or more, I'd say even 45, between 40 and 45% are out of the state of Utah now.
Because you guys have recruiting centers in other states, right?
Yeah. We have a big recruiting center in Phoenix, a big one in North Carolina, two in North Carolina, down in San Diego, up in Michigan. Like we have a few recruiting hubs now, and with social media where it's at now, it's a lot easier to see and believe that when you used to go out to campuses, even like in the 2010, 11, 12, you're out in West Virginia recruiting for Vivint or for Altera or, something back then. And people are like, what is this? It doesn't, it sounds too good to be true. Or the ones that believed it would go talk to their parents. And
Yeah. What's crazy is there have been so many amazing case studies of people in direct to home. So I remember back in the day, a lot of people thought it was a scam or their parents would get involved. Now, since there's so many like proven success stories, it's like, please go, please go, please go, please go.
Yeah, you look at all the the sharks on like Shark Tank and Richard Brunson, like all these guys, like they all did door to door at some point.
Well, let me share this with you. I don't think I've shared this with you, but in 1999, so I graduated BYU in '99.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm interviewing with a bunch of companies. One of them was Eli Lilly Pharmaceuticals. That's the job that I wanted. And the interviewer, her first question to me, have you ever sold pest control during the summers? And I was taken aback. I'm like, what? Where did this question come from? I knew nobody that was selling direct to home. Nobody. I would see in the BYU newspaper, the Daily Universe, that there were some marketing ads of guys with their earnings. So I remember seeing that. I didn't know a single person that had done pest. And she asked me this question. And then the follow-up question is, because I told her, well, I haven't sold pest control, but I knocked doors for 2 years. I served a church mission. Says, yeah, but we're at BYU. Everybody else has done that. Like, that's not a differentiator for me. Quick response from her. And then she goes, why would I hire you if your classmates that are also interviewing for this position have been knocking not just ecclesiastical doors, but secular doors in business? Why would I not take their business expertise and sales expertise and go with you? And I didn't know what to say. It caught me completely off guard. But I just remember that question, and then I ended up taking a job at Walmart. They hired me on the spot. I think they were just desperate.
Yeah.
But I just remember, man, this pest control thing and this door knocking thing. So when I got approached to do Dish Network, it's like that interview came back, the whole pest thing came back. And that's when I got into the industry, is mid to early 2000s, doing Dish, but it's always been there. So the next question I have for you is, you've been in the game for a long time. How old's your oldest kid?
14.
14.
Yeah.
Boy, girl?
Daughter. Yeah. Girl.
Girl. So I have a 23 boy, a 21 girl, 19 boy, 17-year-old girl, 11-year-old boy. So my two oldest are actually out doing direct to home. So I want to get your take on, what do you think maybe it's a loaded question, but is it a good idea to have the youth go out and experience what we've experienced?
100%.
And why?
I mean, I look at it in just my own life. If I'm going to kind of rewind to pre door to door, post LDS mission, door knocking, like most of my growth and where I was able to learn the hard parts of working and like the reality of getting your teeth kicked in was in my childhood. I'm one of 6 kids, one of 5 boys, about a year and a half between all of us in a really clustered group of boys. So, when baseball season came up, it was expensive for my family to enroll 3, 4, 5 kids, when it was time for piano lessons or summer camps or scout camp or school, trips to the aquarium or, that kind of stuff. It wasn't cheap. And so where I grew up down in San Bernardino, California, a lot of the schools and sports organizations had the fundraisers and things. So if I wanted to play baseball and my parents couldn't afford to put me on the team, I had to go sell chocolates. I had to go sell pancake breakfast tickets to go to scout camp for the summer. And a lot of that kind of stuff has gone away now with, different clubs and fundraisers and that kind of stuff. But, now they do a fundraiser day at Chick-fil-A where they sponsor a day at Chick-fil-A and they go hand out, invitations and people go, they earn money. But I had to go out and knock doors from, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old to go and enjoy my summer or have a meaningful sports experience or to do these kinds of things. And that, taught me to talk to people that weren't in my comfort zone, that weren't of my own likeness, because you never know what's behind the door. I was a young kid talking to grown-ups, which again is a skill that kids don't have a lot nowadays. They know how to talk to their parents, their grandparents, their comfort zone adults. But that's why my first summer knocking really wasn't that hard for me. Like if I'm looking back at that, but I think it's key. Like I want my daughter to go knock doors. I want my son to go knock doors. Maybe not for a full summer, and I'll definitely have a say in what markets my daughter goes to because she's my daughter and I don't want her knocking, Compton, California or something, or inner city Chicago. But no, I think it's a great experience. Like you need to, it is a literal by the sweat of your brow job. Like it's feast or famine, and you learn to manage the emotions. You have to learn how to control what you can control. You have to learn to accept the things you can't, the weather, your car partner, whether a company just came through it or not, or whether the HOA is on edge because of break-ins in your area. Like there's so much out of your control that you just have to lean into what you can, and you learn very quickly what you should be putting your time and energy into.
Imagine if I appreciate that. Imagine if every youth would either A and B, would A, serve some sort of service mission, some sort of humanitarian thing, even more specifically in a different state or even a different country, because travel is fatal to prejudice. The more you travel, the more you realize that we're more like each other than unlike each other. And the other thing would be if we could get every youth to knock doors for a few seasons. What they learn about being an entrepreneur, about work-life harmony, about negotiations, salesmanship, time management. Like it's how much better of a place would we be in?
Those are going to be those that do it are going to be the future leaders.
Well, listen to me. Information and IQ intelligence is a commodity, especially now with AI. What's really going to make a difference in the marketplace is just your EQ, your emotional quotient, because it's a I'm not going to say it's a lost skill, but it's a getting lost soon skill. And if we can get people to really understand that skill set and get great at it, man, they're gonna be lethal. They're gonna be amazing leaders, and the world is theirs for the taking.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a shift. And this is, I don't have any data behind this or anything. My gut is telling me that we're going to see a shift. Right now, everything's super AI. I mean, I get a text message. I don't know if it's a person or a machine. I get an email that's from a person. Who knows if the person even wrote it, and who knows if the person that I respond to is even going to respond to it.
Sure.
I think that there's going to be this shift where people are going to start longing for face-to-face interactions again.
So I think we're there.
Yeah. In sales,
I think it's
in
just
all of
gonna
that
get
kind of stuff.
more.
And so I think that, yes, you should absolutely learn how to harness AI and harness a lot of the technology things that you can in your business, in your life, and how you're doing stuff. Like, am I having ChatGPT help me write, articles and help me write stuff? Absolutely.
I mean, brother, it's as simple as learning to talk human to human.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's more key than ever. So I guess my plea to you is keep it going.
Yeah.
Keep the company that you're representing crushing it, so that we can put our youth on those platforms.
100%.
Like, it's super necessary. I've seen my two boys, and it's the best thing that they could be doing right now.
Yeah.
The best thing. I mean, the sacrifices that the power of sacrifice, what they're able to learn there, and just being able to get up every day and go through that grit, that grind, that sweat, that blood, that disappointment, how to deal with failure, how to get back up, how to react when somebody tells you to F off, or somebody tells you, hey, go get a real job, and then they keep fighting through it and come out victorious. And then how to work with a team, and like you said, your people in your own car group, and how to deal with the weather.
Yep.
Like, that's beautiful. Like, me knowing that my kids are out there in 100+ degree weather, and if they're dealing with a rainstorm, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I want more of that for them.
Because those are the separation season moments.
Well, I grew up with it.
Yeah.
So the greatest gift that I was able to get from my parents was the gift of grit. It's like you mentioned, like, I'm the kind of kid that if I needed underwear, I had to wait till Christmas. And that was one of the gifts that I would open up. Socks, same thing. It wasn't, oh, I need a new pair of socks. Oh, here you go. Let's go to Kmart, Walmart, whatever. No, I had to wait till the gifting season because money was really scarce. So, my kids are growing up with a different environment because, for lack of a better word, we've been able to be successful in that monetary regard. But I wonder every day, am I giving my kids the gift of grit that I was able to get? And it keeps me up at night. I am so glad that I have the platform of door to door where they can go get that done for themselves.
Absolutely.
Now let's talk about one thing that I admire about you is your ability to connect with humans and network. And I actually want to talk about, I don't know if the proper wording would be alter ego, but you know where I'm headed there.
Yep.
But I want to know more about your philosophies there, because there's very few people that get it like you get it. Like, even the previous guest that was here, like, you knew who it was, and you probably have a longer relationship with that individual than I do. I don't know, but it seems like you're just super connected. So what's your vision there? What's your philosophy there? And then let's pivot into your other persona.
My alter ego. Yeah. For me, networking really is your net worth, right? Like, you could have a great idea, but if you can't either supply your own funding, find funding, connect with people that can help you execute, all it stays as an idea. And then someone else comes out with it the next year and you're like, dang it. How many times have you had an idea about something or seen something pop into your head and you're like, that could work. And then you see somebody do it and they have, a multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar exit from what they do. And so for me, it's the networking side of things has always been super, super important, to know the right people and to be in the right rooms and to be able to find ways to put yourself into those rooms. And it's not necessarily to get something in return. It's about how can I add value. And so for me, networking has always just come naturally because I have zero expectation of what I can get. I just want to talk to amazing people. I want to put myself around them. I want to let them know that I'm here to help if they have anything that I can do to help with them. And really, like, I'm trying to think of where to really go with this that can be a teachable thing, because it's always just felt like it's came natural.
And yeah, I was going to ask you, I mean, you say it came natural, but I know that at some point you learned this. Mm-hmm. Can you identify that pivotal point? Like when did it click?
I think it really was through door knocking, like even just at a young age. Like, again, I'm this 8, 9, 10-year-old kid going and telling somebody, hey, I want to play baseball. Can you buy some chocolates for me? And, well, no, we're not really big on sweets in this home. All right, well, do you want to buy some chocolates that I can give them to your neighbor? I would always like, well,
yeah.
Or, do you want to, if you don't want to buy chocolate, that's fine. Would you like to make a donation? And
That's interesting. So this is a teaching moment, because I was telling my 19-year-old son about this the other day. He's like, oh, I had a great day. I only sold one because everybody else was really happy with their service. And I'm like, you just got sold. So there's always two people selling.
Yeah.
So what I love about what you just said is they were going to sell you on the notion that, no, they don't want chocolates or need chocolates because they don't consume chocolates. So they almost sold you, but you didn't allow them to sell you. So you went back and sold them on the notion of, well, since you don't eat chocolates and you're doing this for a charitable cause, how about if you buy chocolates for your neighbors and then you can pass it forward?
Yeah.
Like that's a learning lesson right there. Like, just remember, there's always two people selling.
Yeah.
They're selling you on, I'm not interested. I can't afford it. I already have the service. I don't have time for you. I got to talk to my spouse. This sounds like a scam. And then we believe it as salespeople. Mm-hmm. But it's our duty and our obligation to be bold and to sell, because we know that they'll be in a better position with our product or service than they were before they engaged with us. So, at that point, selling the chocolates, by them gifting it to their neighbors, it's going to create a lot of human life value for them by being able to have a reason to go engage with their neighbors and give a gift. Mm-hmm. And you saw that in your, that early age. That's crazy that you have that intuition.
Yeah. And then it kind of transferred into my LDS mission, where...
Where'd you go?
Mexico City.
Mexico City.
Yeah. So still fluent in Spanish. It's been a blessing to be able to be bilingual. But I hardly had to knock a lot of doors. Like, I guess we're known, we were known in the LDS church about these 2 years of door knocking, but there was such a high population in Mexico that I hardly ever had to go out and actually knock doors.
Referrals.
I'd walk down the street, walk into a market, jump on a bus, jump into the subway, and then just people would walk up and generally talk to the American kid there, that was, they'd come up and try to speak English to me in broken Spanish, English, and I'd talk back, and we'd go set up a lesson with them. But there was this one day where I was in an area with the missionary that was struggling, and I was in his leader, and they had nobody to teach, no lessons, nobody lined up, no referrals coming in, and he was on the verge of quitting to go home. He's like, wow. If I don't see success soon,
go home, home,
quit,
not home,
go
apartment.
home, no, go home. He had a rough patch. And so I went into his area, didn't really know a lot of stuff. And I was like, hey, we're going to knock doors today. This is new to me too. And we knocked doors and just knocked doors. Nobody was home. No, anybody we did knock into didn't want to talk, not interested. And towards the end of our day, and it's always right, towards the end of your day, it's after you've pushed past and you've shown, whether it's God or the universe or karma, that you're not giving up. You're not giving up. And so I was like, hey, let's take a second. Let's hit one more door. Which door do you want to hit? Looked him in the eyes, elder, what door do you want to hit in this neighborhood? And then we'll call it. We'll call it after this. So we go up and knock this door, and he's feeling super good about it. I see the sparkle kind of return to his face. He's super hopeful. So I'm in my heart, I'm praying please open this door and be somebody that we can teach. They open the door we don't want to hear your message. Get out of here. We don't believe in what you believe in. We never will. Get out of here. And I just see him get crushed. I'm like, crap, this is the straw that's going to break this poor kid's back, the straw that breaks the camel's back. So I take a deep breath in my, 21-year-old body. I'm like, brother, I know you don't want to hear this message. You already told me that. I respect that. I'm not here to force my message on anybody, just like you're not here to force your message on anybody. We all ultimately believe there's a God. We believe in this, we believe in that. And I respect it. How long have you lived in the neighborhood? And he was like, I've lived here for 15 years. I said, okay, well, do you know anybody on this street that's going through hardship right now that could use a good message about God and that God loves them and loves their family? And the guy's heart softened on the doors. He went from being this big, post-work construction, Corona bottle in his hand, just hard dude. And he was like, actually, my neighbor just lost her husband. He just passed away. She's a single widow now with 3 daughters. Maybe they could use some good messages. What's their name? And went over next door, talked to them, ended up teaching them. They, ultimately became members of the church, and it was a beautiful story. They needed the message at that time. And so again, he tried to sell me on no. And yeah, I'm like, okay, yeah, you don't want it, but who do you know that does? And I can't tell you how many times I've used that same thing on the doors. I don't want pest control. I already have it. Awesome. You're in contract. Yep. And even if I wasn't, I'm not switching. Cool. Who in your neighborhood's new, or who in your neighborhood, do you know if your neighbors have pest control? Well, I never see a truck in front of my neighbor's house to the right. Awesome. Do you mind if I let him know that you told me that you have pest control? He doesn't. He should get it. Sounds good to me. Cause they're going to say whatever they want to get you off their porch.
Yep.
And of course I go next door and I'm very clear, and I'm like, hey, your neighbor's not with us. They have a happy company they're happy with, and they're taken care of, but he says he didn't think you had pest control. And so instead of your bugs coming over to his house and him chasing his bugs over to your house, let me tell you what we're doing. And how many people I've been able to sell because of that same mindset. And so, so yeah, so I learned that young, that, that a no isn't always a no. Cause you can, even then,
a no's tell me more.
Yeah. Tell me more. Or it's like, you know what? I don't want chocolates, but here's $1. Get something out of the situation. Worst case, get a bottle of water.
You know what I've done in the past with pest control companies is I've actually asked them how much their commission is, and I've paid that because I'm already under contract just for karma purposes.
That's good. That's good. And yeah, so when I learned that, and the mission one, that saved that kid's mission. That kid from that point on, he was like, I don't know how this worked, man, but
did he stay?
He stayed out the full time, and he was only 6 months in, so he had to last another 18 months after that. And so for me, it was never I'm never going to leave a door empty handed, and I'm never going to leave a door in a tense situation. I'm always going to want to leave
friendly.
Yeah. Leave it friendly. There was this Cub Scout, Boy Scout rule growing up. My dad was an Eagle Scout, and I grew up in scouting and stuff. And it was leave the campsite better than you found it.
Sure.
And I think there's this kind of plague going on nowadays where people just want to burn an area. And they kind of go through this crazy girlfriend or crazy boyfriend stage where they're like, if I can't sell in this area, nobody else can. And they're so rude. They get put on the HOA board. They get put on the Facebook groups. And that really spoils areas for every other industry, for every other company that goes through it for at least a few years. It makes it very, very difficult. And so my goal was, whether it's a competitor or one of my own employees that knocks behind me in a week, in a month, in a year, I want to leave this area primed so that anybody that has a door-to-door company that wants to grow is going to have, if their last experience was me, they're not going to want to run people out with pitchforks and torches. And so I always just try to leave the campsite better than when I found it.
That's super cool. That's super cool. Okay, let's talk about what do we call that?
The elf, how I elf around, elfing around.
Because you have, on your Instagram, you have more on that than you do on your personal, right?
So my personal's grown a lot because of the elf stuff.
Okay.
And I've just kind of started my other page to kind of more separate the difference between the two. But yeah, so networking kind of poured into this elf thing. And yeah, so back in 2000.
And if we can get some videos and pictures to show what this is, here we go.
Yeah. So back in 2010, we did a sub for Santa, sub for Santa thing at work. And it was a particularly really cold day, snowy. We were supposed to go out and collect donations and then go take those donations plus our own donations and money we were donating to Target and Walmart, buy gifts and things. And so it was one of those days where you just didn't want to go out and do a whole lot. And I could kind of sense that in the energy and the text group thread and the text messages. Well, dude, it's kind of cold. Are you sure you want to go out and knock doors and collect donations? Absolutely. And so I decided in that moment to go and rent an elf costume to put on and, go knock doors in a Buddy the Elf wig, jumpsuit, green coat, pointed shoes, everything, so that my reps knew that as their leader, I was out there not only knocking doors in the cold with them, but also knocking with very little on to protect me from the cold, and 2, just to make people happy. And so I went out and did my donations, actually went up through Todd Peterson's neighborhood. Him and Andy gave me a decent sized check, and a bunch of other neighbors were super, super generous and did that. So we showed up at Target, and the reps that hadn't seen me in the elf costume yet immediately de-thawed their icy frown with just laughter. And as I was shopping and doing all of that, I also noticed around the store that a lot of the shoppers, you know, the moms had their kids in the cart, their kids were crying and being loud, and they'd see the elf, the kid would stop crying, and the mom would like look back and like, they stopped crying. They stopped crying. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then I was down checking out and, you know, swiping my card and in the checkout lanes, jumping between a few different checkout lanes, and just kind of had a good time. And all the reps that went out with me were like, this was fun. Like, thank you for doing this. Thanks for throwing the costume on. And that was kind of it. I didn't really think much about it again. The next year for our Sub for Santa, the same group of reps and some of the people were like, are you bringing out the elf costume again? So it was kind of, there was an expectation there. And so I rented it again, put it on, went back to Target at the end of the donation collections and started shopping. And one of the checkout ladies was like, you were here last year, right? Is this you? And I was like, yep. She was like, we were in the break room after just talking about how happy you made us all. We were laughing. And so that was when like it clicked with me that like something as simple as putting on like an outward expression of how I feel inside, just wanting to spread happiness and joy, like something is there. And for me in that moment, it was this little ripple effect. It was like, okay, I threw a little pebble of positivity in a pond, and that spread in this Target to the point where the checkout lady is still here a year later, and her face brightened up and lit up when she saw me. And she was like, you were here last year. Thank you for being here again. And again, I'm running back between checkout lines, swiping my card, buying gifts. And so then I wore it for a few more days to Walmart, and I kind of wore it with my wife and kids to go do some Christmas shopping at the mall right around Christmas Eve. And again, that kind of became a yearly thing at Aptive and with the company. And I started getting, you know, hit up by, you know, Kevin from Sodalicious was like, hey, can you come through and drive through my drive-through at Sodalicious and with your elf costume on, and we'll do a little bit and we'll post it on our Instagram. And so little by little, people started kind of reaching out to do kind of things like that. And hey, the Santa Claus bailed, but can the elf show up for this event tonight? And so I ended up buying a costume, and people didn't pay me. I didn't want to take money for it. It was just something that I knew that it would help people be happy. And so fast forward to 2017, after a few years of really getting comfortable, and actually I'm not really, like, I won't say I'm comfortable in it, because you're putting on a full yellow bodysuit that's tight. You're putting a coat, you know, a wig, which is like a beanie for me, and I'm not used to having hair anymore. Like, it's not comfortable. It's very uncomfortable to put on, but the purpose behind it is important. And so I decided this year, you know, what am I going to do this year to kind of elevate the elf experience? You know, I'm done throwing little pebbles of positivity into a small pond. How do I get a bigger rock, or how do I create bigger ripples? And the answer to me was go to a jazz game. You know, I'm going to wear my elf costume to a jazz game, sit row 1 or row 2, and see what happens. And so I wore it, and it happened to be the Christmas Day or Christmas Eve, Christmas Day game. Donovan had a really good game. He was the standout player of the game, and that was back in that era, him and Rudy and stuff. Like, he'd grab bottles of water at the end of the game and pour water on the kind of the player of the game's head. And so everyone was always like looking for where he was, and so he'd find creative ways to like sneak up behind him and things. So he was the player of the game. And instead of grabbing water bottles this time, Rudy Gobert came over and grabbed the hat off my head and like plopped it on Donovan Mitchell's head right at the end of the game. And Donovan didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what was going on. Rudy knew what was going on, but there was pictures that ended up on SportsCenter and ESPN and USA Today of like me, like, where's my hat? And like Rudy grabbing it and Donovan not wondering what was going on. And then I had to go and, you know, get through security and down to the court to get my hat back from Rudy because he stole it from me. And that kind of created some recognition with the players too. And so I was like, okay, I did 1 game this year. I'll do 2 games next year. And then, you know, 19 rolled around. I'm like, let's go to, you know, 5 or 6 Christmas games. And with that, there came more opportunities. I'd still do the Aptive charity stuff.
Well, hold on. You just said Christmas games. Are you...
So not multiple.
December-ish.
Yeah, December-ish,
okay.
Christmas era. So once Mariah Carey starts playing on the radio, the elf suit comes out. And so then Utah Foster Care, we started doing a lot of charity stuff with them. And so I'd show up to their events. I started doing stuff with the Jazz Bear. Started doing primary children's hospital visits. And now it just becomes a thing where in December, I'm almost in my elf costume more than I'm in my regular clothes. And it's just become like I've done these toy drives now with a kind of a group that I do some charity things with. We did 12 or 10 cities in 11 days last year, all across the U.S. Went into a ton of them there in the elf costume, and I'm out in the lines where the kids are gathering up to get their toys. I'm handing out snacks and treats before that. They're all giving me, they're all having me do quotes, and I'm doing my smiles and my little bits from the movie, and I've just realized that for me, like, it's another way to give back. And yeah, you give and you should give monetarily. You should give to causes that are meaningful, that are going to make a difference. And I think you should give till it hurts, right? But also, you shouldn't just give to cut a check and walk away. Not, you should find other ways to give. Like you said, go do service trips, go do, go volunteer at schools, go volunteer at hospitals, go volunteer at, homeless shelters. Get out there and learn to connect with people. And so what I've learned with putting on the elf costume year over year over year, and I'll get more creative with bigger audiences. I think that, either this year or next year, I'll start probably up in Boston and hit one game a day for like 25 days straight through all the NBA league, and travel in it, jump on the airplanes in it, like have it documented, and just kind of build that out and see if I can hit, 25 arenas in 25 days straight across the U.S. and see what happens, see what comes of it. But really, it really is just this, like, for me, I can't be in a bad mood when I have my elf costume on.
I was going to say that, yeah.
Like, there's that line from the movie, like, oh, he's an angry elf, right? Like, you can't be mad and angry. And even if you have internal conflict, you're having a bad day, the second you put that thing on, like, you have to put a smile on your face. And so I've realized that I can shift my mood a lot faster from having a horrible day. The second I throw the elf costume on, put a smile on my face, like, my problems don't mean anything at that point. My focus is other people. And so that, whether that's at the jazz arena or now the hockey team, I think that the elf and the hockey team are going to have some good synergy going on there. I've done a lot of, the players sub for Santas and charities and stuff. So I've done stuff with Malik Beasley and Jordan Clarkson and those guys where I'm dressing up and helping them with their projects now too. And it's just been really, really fun to see the smiles that can come from that. And so what I've learned is that, yes, definitely give financially, give of your time, but also give emotionally. Like, it takes work to give a smile, to give a high five, to give a hug, but a smile, a high five, or a hug could be the life-saving, like, glimpse of hope to somebody in the world. I've had people come up and talk to me after interactions with me or after seeing me at different events, and they're like, I was contemplating suicide, or I was contemplating the value of my life until I saw this stupid elf running around, and I wanted to come up and just let you know, like, first of all, why are you doing this? 2, you made a difference. So whatever it is that you're doing, if you're doing it for the right reasons, keep doing it. And people have approached me with pretty heavy stories that were like, I just needed someone to make me feel seen or heard today, and you did that. Thank you. And that person, if I gave that person $100, that might not have the same impact, but I gave them a smile, a high five, and a hug, and the elf wave, and yeah, so that's something that I've done. And so I like to challenge people to find their own elf suit or their own super suit or their own alter ego when it comes to giving. And really what it is it really is at its core, it really is just an outward expression of how I feel inside. And I want to spend my life giving. Like, I could be the richest person in the world, but if I'm not helping people, what's that money going to do for me and for others? Nothing. I could be the most cash poor person in the world, have barely my ends meet, like my needs met. But if I'm helping other people, like, I'm living a rich life. Like, and that's what I want, my kids, these 18, 19, 20-year-old kids that I'm training and helping in my job, I want them to know that if they're not giving, they're missing out on what life really is about. And I want to spend the rest of my life just helping people smile, feel seen, feel heard.
I love that. And what I love about what you just said, it's all genuine. Mm-hmm. Like, I know that you come from a place of just giving and being real. And that's awesome. That's awesome that you found that gift. And
it's stupid, dude. I put on a freaking costume, but I love it.
I love that a silly costume like that from a silly character has actually turned into a really amazing superhero that's literally saving lives. As crazy as that sounds, like a person contemplating taking their life and then they ran into you and just saw that glimpse of hope.
Yeah.
Like, who knows?
They saw me
Who
jumping,
knows how many lives you've saved?
Yeah,
who
they
knows?
saw me jumping across the crosswalk on my way into the arena, you know, doing that scene from Elf where he's hopping across. And then, you know, they
So
saw
how
me
many
at the
times have
game.
you seen the movie?
Oh, dude, way too many times. Way too many times. But it's, you know, at the same time, not enough. Like, I recreated a bunch of scenes from it this year in New York. Me and my friend Murphy flew out for a day and recreated a bunch of scenes. And that was a fun little video to put together.
That's cool.
But no, I mean, my goal is to ultimately at some point either sit courtside with Will Ferrell in.
Has he ever engaged with you on it?
No, not yet. I mean, he's not on Instagram and social. Like, he's not super active in those avenues. I did wear it to a Lakers game last season with my brother, and I ended up actually sitting in seats that were 2 seats away from Will Ferrell's season ticket seats, but he didn't show up. He gave his tickets away to that game. And one of the other season ticket holders was like, I texted Will and said there's an imposter next to him. And I was like, dang it, Will could have been right here.
Yeah, it'll happen.
It'll happen eventually. And I'm excited to see where that evolves. But really from a charity and giving side, from a fundraising side, and the impact that it can have.
It's beautiful. Okay, let's end with this. And I love ending with this question. And you've been absolutely fantastic. Thanks for pouring into the viewers and listeners. As we turn the cameras off, before we do, live life by design. Give us some best practices, some things that you do specifically as a father, as a giver, you know, as an entrepreneur, to live your life by design instead of by default.
Yeah. But I think the more intentional you can be in life, the better. And that doesn't mean you have to have everything figured out, because the second you think your plan is perfect, you figure out how flawed your plan really was, or how life wants to make sure that you know that the life's kind of in control. They're going to poke holes in what you want to do, but you have to, you know, put, you know, I think with intent or intention into what you do. And that intention or that intent has to come from the right place, has to come from your heart, has to come from a position of giving more than you need to take or more than you take. Again, leaving your campsite better than when you found it, leaving your interactions or your business or your family, you know, better than you found it. And so your intent or your intention is super, super important. Living life by design is also putting forth the effort, right? We've talked about hard work and grit and how we really hope that our kids who are growing up in a very different environment than us, you know, no Kaye 33, right? 23, 10 streets away, 10 Kayes away, but like Kaye 23, you know, like no Kaye 23 for your kids. And so I want to work towards what I'm earning, reap what I sow, do things for the right reasons, have the right intent or intention. And for me, what that translates to really for me, life by design is to have purpose in what you do, whether that's going out knocking doors or whether it's being a dad, being a husband, being a father. Where you have purpose, you have power. And I think I'll just end with that. When you have a clear purpose or a design, you'll find the power that you need to get what you want to do.
Mic drop. Much love.
There you go. Thank
Appreciate
you,
you, brother.
Thanks for having
Thanks
me
for
on.
being on.